to speak the truth to power, which is a phrase that Edward Said has articulated, and it's very important. And luckily, it's not like a unified discourse. If the German government speaks that way, then everybody, and there's this kind of space of independence. People think differently, sometimes more to the left, sometimes more to the right, but in that space, you navigate and you speak and you exchange. And I don't want, you know, to go and force myself in a place that doesn't want to hear me. I don't do it also in personal life. If people are curious and would like to know, you can share, although your ability to share is also limited and governed by that which you cannot speak about. And there's a lot you cannot speak about.
And you're also saying that you don't want victimhood to make people, the chosen people, a sense of being chosen just to suffer. Because that brings us to other myths and mythologies, which I think are very potent. Was there another question? Do we have time for about 2 more? Any questions or comments? Yes, please go. You need the mic again.
I think I know the answer, and I would share your answer, but I just wanted to ask you on the record, is your voice mitigated, or does it lose some of its power when you take official government funding, such as through the Goethe-Institut, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a question that one would ask themselves. And I'm not with the theory of contamination. And we spoke about that. If you take money from somebody and they have not killed, and there's a, you know, maybe here, like also for what John Stuart Mill defines as harm. When there's an actual harm and you know there's a body that is supported and works within a structure that supports harm, I wouldn't take the money. And I've been invited to the US by the Foreign Office, and of course, I said no. I don't want that, and I will never want that. So it is a question, what? There's not this, it's like either that or that. And also sometimes with the people. And what kind of discourse? And one should be careful. I would not go also with a right-wing institution, and there are. And in terms of right-wing, not only it's politics to Palestine, but also in terms of neoliberalism. And there's like, you know, you always get receive these invitations, but I always investigate where's the money coming from. Like now I also received an invitation to Istanbul, but there, after the investigation, I know this is the municipality that is supported by the AKP, the Erdogan party, which has suppressed, arrested, and harassed writers, academics, etc., and also the Kurdish, Turkish part of the population. So on these questions, you have to think. And I think this process of thinking, I don't always say no immediately. I explain the whole time. So I really bore them, and I bore myself because it takes me a lot of time. Because I think this is important to say why not, and not just to say no or now I'm busy. Because some people decide to be more kind of pragmatic and say, no, I'm busy this time. No, I'm not busy. Actually, I have time, but I don't want to go to your festival because your festival is kind of giving a good, kind of this beautiful face to the practices of the party in the government. And I think we can decide upon this. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Goethe. I like Werther's. I mean, I read him. I'm not a fan of East-West Divan. But it's okay. But he didn't do anything bad, you know.
But most cultural institutes in Europe are not actually organs of the government, and certainly writers are not sent abroad to promote the agenda of any prevalent party. Otherwise, so many writers wouldn't travel around as guests of the Alliance Française or the British Council or the Goethe-Institut. And I think they are quite committed to multiculturalism and pluralism.
And you know, it's not only when they don't, they're not using to promote them directly, but sometimes your presence as if it justifies. And I know Israeli writers, for instance, the Israeli government does not support them to travel. So there are certain Israeli writers, they travel around the world, and you know that they are being supported by the office, the Foreign Office, the Israeli Foreign Office. Yeah. And you know, they are going there to present the nice, cultured face of the Israeli government. That they have mistakes, they do mistake the Palestinians, we do, but you know, we can all solve it through a dialogue. Sorry, no, I want actually a monologue. I don't want you a dialogue, you know. The dialogue so far is go there, give me your ID, okay, sir, this is the only dialogue now. So I would like, no, actually, there's a discourse that need to be put, and it's my turn, and I don't want to be limited and defined by your kind of ideology on how to do things, and this is a problem. So I think there's a difference. Sometimes they use you, even you try not to speak about something, and you're not going to say, I'm supporting Netanyahu, but they are using you. And I think it's also important.
I think the BDS is very clear about what we should and shouldn't boycott. In fact, they tell you that many, many institutions, you have to look for that little logo that says, supported by the tourist office, the various ways the Israeli government supports people, artists, to go abroad. And some of them are quite seemingly invisible to an innocent person. And the BDS is very clear about that, so they don't, in fact, ask you to stand against independent Israeli academics or writers.
And this also precedes the BDS, because, you know, sometimes also with the BDS, I have certain problems because as if it's like becomes a collective voice. No, I can decide and I can see things. And also, you know, I would not agree because I know these, like Yitzhak Laor, he's a great Israeli poet, that he is being strangled by the Israeli government. And this is, you see, like, okay, this is kind of solidarity. I know his struggle is different than mine, and he doesn't ask for my support, but I can see that it is actually the Israelis who are boycotting. They are boycotting writers. So it's not like the Palestinians have the power not to speak to. I mean, nobody hears us. So it's not like, and I think it's very important to articulate this kind of position of power in these kind of processes.
I think we have a question right here, the lady in the...
Well, it's partly question and partly comment. I'm very pleased. It was my privilege to listen to your chapter that you read out from your book, The Sea is Mine. For myself, I wasn't aware that there are so many walls between the 1.2 million Palestinians. I wouldn't have known unless I had heard you. And some credit goes to the Goethe-Institut, which enabled you to write it and to read it out to us. But in spite of it being a monologue, don't you think that your writing instinctively reflects a political state and political scenario that the Palestinians are going to go through? And I'm quite sure you've very successfully managed to conduct it and convey it certainly to the population in Pakistan. So, although you don't want to indulge in politics, but instinctively it comes out in the expression of your work, literary work, which if people read are able to formulate a view for themselves.
Yeah, you're certainly right. It's not a refusal that I don't want to indulge in politics, and my apologies if this what came through. Actually, no. What I'm saying that politics is not limited to an act of an announcement. Politics goes in every corner of your life. In the case of Palestine, it's, as I was speaking yesterday also to a friend, it goes in the time when you take a shower or when you do your washing. And this is politics. I mean, the second novel here that is called We Are Equally Far From Love, which I wrote exactly in the horrific years that I witnessed as a young woman in the early 2000s until 2004. And it's about the inability to love, about the failure of love. And for me, in a way, if you want to define it, this is a political novel. Although it talks about couples, also only talks about the breakup of relations between a couple or inside the family or the absence of love. But in a sense, this is for me a political novel of the destruction of the self, the inability to love. And I think we really are suffering that in Palestine. It comes out of lack of trust. So this is an investigation. It's not like you're going with words that you did not have a relation with. It's not like you borrowed a discourse from somebody else. But it is a reflection on our being in conditions of oppression.
I think we're done. Would you like to wrap up, Maniza? I began. So.
I think we really wanted to give you the maximum time possible to speak, Adania. I want to thank you very much. I wanted to steer us towards politics as much as possible, but the word politics is not the right word. I did want us to talk more about the wall that is not just the wall. There isn't one wall, but it's walls around each and every town, and the walls and the chains and locks on everybody's mouth. And despite that, writers and poets and artists are rising somehow above that wall and those walls and flying to be able to see the sea and to claim the sea. And there is so much about Palestine that resonates with our condition, not only in Pakistan, not only in Sindh, not only in Karachi, but right now it seems that a large part of the world has become very much in the literal and the figurative sense, Palestine, because there is surveillance, there is censorship, there is a reduction of public space, there is land grabbing going on at a massive scale, and there is targeted killing going on. So whether you want it or not, we are in solidarity with you.
Thank you, Shukriya.
Thank you very, very much, Adania. I hope you'll keep coming back to us.